I never thought my life would change because of a conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. It was just another quiet morning at that little corner cafe in downtown Austin, the one with mismatched mugs and jazz playing in the background. I had my laptop open, earbuds in, pretending to work while sipping on my usual dark roast. And then I heard it. Her voice. "I'll brutally dump him after he proposes." It hit me like a freight train. A laugh followed, cold, sharp, nothing like the one I'd fallen in love with. That voice, that laugh, belonged to Melissa, my girlfriend of 3 years. The woman I thought I was going to spend my life with. She didn't know I was just a few feet away, hidden behind a booth divider. She didn't know I could hear every twisted word she was saying to her friends. And she sure as hell didn't know what I was about to do next. Most men would have stormed out, confronted her, maybe even lost it right then and there. Not me. I stayed calm. Because while she thought she was writing the script to her perfect little revenge story, she had no idea I'd already started writing the ending. If this story hit home, drop a 1 in the comments. Let me know, would you have stayed quiet like me, or exploded right there in the cafe? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this channel with someone who needs to hear this. Thank you for watching. 3 years ago, I met Melissa on a rainy Sunday afternoon at a friend's engagement party. She was standing near the patio, drenched but laughing like the storm had no business ruining her mood. That laugh, the real one, not the one I'd hear later, was the first thing that pulled me in. By the end of the night, we were trading stories over cheap wine and worn-out jazz records. Within months, we were inseparable. Sunday morning pancakes, spontaneous weekend road trips, shared playlists, inside jokes. Our life together wasn't flashy, but it felt real. Solid. Like the kind of love people spend a lifetime trying to find. I was a software engineer with a quiet life in Austin, content with my routine, and somehow she made everything brighter. She filled the space I didn't even know was empty. Over time, our relationship became a rhythm, one I didn't question. We moved in together after a year and a half, decorated the apartment with mismatched furniture and little photo frames from our travels. Melissa had a way of making things feel like home. She'd hum while brushing her teeth, leave little notes on the fridge, and talk endlessly about the future. Marriage came up more often than not. She'd leave her phone open to engagement ring designs or casually mention venues she saw on Instagram. Once, she showed me a photo of a princess-cut ring from a boutique downtown and said, "If you ever propose, something like this wouldn't be a bad idea." I'd laugh it off, but truth be told, I'd already been thinking about it. Lucendi, the cozy Italian restaurant where we had our first official date, was her favorite place in the city. She used to say it felt like a hidden gem, even though it was just a few blocks from our apartment. For our upcoming anniversary, I'd already made a reservation there. In my mind, it was the perfect setting to propose. Nothing extravagant, just heartfelt. The ring was picked out, plans were set. I was ready to take that next step, to commit to a future I believed we both wanted. I truly thought I was building something real with her, something lasting. And maybe that's the cruelest part of all. I wasn't just in love with her. I trusted her. I believed in us. And while I was preparing to get down on one knee, Melissa was preparing something else entirely, something colder, sharper, and far more devastating than I could have ever imagined. That morning at the cafe started like any other. I had my laptop open, pretending to focus on code, earbuds in but not playing anything, just needing a bit of background noise while sorting through emails. The smell of roasted beans and old wood filled the air, comforting in its familiarity. That place had become a routine stop for me, a quiet corner of my day where the world slowed down. I had no idea it would become the place where my entire reality unraveled. I remember the moment I heard her laugh. It was sharper than usual, more forced, almost smug. I glanced up, and my stomach tightened. Melissa was there, just a few feet behind me, tucked into the booth next to mine with her two closest friends, Sierra and Paige. They didn't see me, the booth divider gave me just enough cover, but I could see them clearly through the mirror on the opposite wall. I almost stood up to say hi. Almost. Then I heard my name. "So, you're really going to go through with it?" Sierra asked, her voice low but not nearly low enough. Melissa smirked and took a sip of her iced latte. "Of course. David's so predictable. He's been Googling ring styles. I checked his browser history last week. He's basically already proposed in his head." Sierra and Paige burst out laughing, and my heart sank before I could fully understand why. "But 3 years, Melissa?" Paige said, sounding almost concerned. "That's a long con." Melissa shrugged, her voice calm, deliberate, cutting. "Please. The apartment's in his name. I've barely paid for anything since we moved in. And Eric's place makes this one look like a shoebox. Have you seen his Tesla? His kitchen? I mean, come on." I felt something cold spread through my chest, something heavy and unfamiliar. My breathing slowed, but my fingers gripped the table edge so tightly I could feel my knuckles locking. Melissa leaned forward, her voice dropping into a whisper, but I heard every word. "I'm going to let him do it. The whole thing. He'll get on one knee, give his little heartfelt speech, maybe even cry. And I'll just laugh. In his face. Right there, in front of everyone. Then I'll tell him I've been with Eric for months. Eric already booked our weekend trip for Cabo. We leave the next day." Sierra clinked her spoon against her glass and said, "You're evil." "I love it." Paige giggled nervously, "What about his friends? Your mutuals?" Melissa rolled her eyes. "They'll get over it. Most of them were his friends first anyway. I've already been hanging out with Eric's crowd, better parties, better connections. Honestly, David's sweet, but he's basic. He still wears a Timex in 2025. That's all you need to know." I sat there in silence, holding myself together like my bones were made of glass. Every word she said chipped away at the life I thought we shared. It wasn't just cheating. It was mockery. A performance. A carefully rehearsed act designed to humiliate me. She didn't just fall out of love, she planned to make me her punchline. My stomach turned as I imagined myself standing in that restaurant, ring in hand, eyes full of love, while she laughed in mine. I wanted to scream, to stand up and call her out in that moment. But I didn't. Instead, I reached into my backpack and opened my phone camera. Quietly, without drawing attention, I hit record. Every cruel word, every shallow giggle, every plan for betrayal, I captured it all. When they got up to leave, I stayed frozen, watching them through the glass as they walked to her car, still laughing, still oblivious. Melissa kissed her fingers and waved to her friends before driving off. I sat there for what felt like an hour. My coffee had gone cold. My body felt numb. But my mind was already moving. The heartbreak hadn't settled yet. The humiliation hadn't even begun to burn. But somewhere beneath the wreckage of my emotions, something else started to take root. Not revenge exactly, just clarity. A kind of razor-sharp stillness. I realized then that I didn't need to shout or break or crumble. I just needed to wait. To watch. And to plan. Because if she wanted to put on a show, she had no idea what kind of ending I was about to write for her. That night, when Melissa walked through the door with her usual smile and that casual, airy voice asking how my day had been, I looked her straight in the eyes and smiled back. "Busy, but good," I said, pulling her in for a kiss she didn't deserve. She had no clue what I'd heard just hours earlier. No idea that the man standing in front of her wasn't heartbroken, he was focused. I knew then I couldn't confront her right away. Not yet. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore, it was about making sure I had every piece of evidence before I pulled the rug out from under her. So I got to work. Quietly. Methodically. Over the next few days, I began collecting everything. I started with her phone. She always left it lying around when she showered, and I never gave her a reason to suspect I'd go through it. I didn't need to snoop too far. Messages with Sierra and Paige were riddled with smug comments about how easy I was to manipulate, how she had me wrapped around her finger, and how Eric was just so much more exciting. But it was her chats with Eric that gave me everything I needed. Photos, flirty messages, plans for secret dinners, and, most insulting of all, a selfie of them in my hoodie, cuddled on what looked like his couch. That same hoodie I bought on our trip to Denver. The same one she used to say made her feel safe. My blood boiled, but I held it in. I took screenshots of everything. Uploaded them to a secure cloud folder. Then I created a private drive and a backup on a flash stick I kept hidden in the back panel of my desk drawer. No detail escaped me, not even the geotags on their pictures. I started tracking her phone location, noting every unexplained stop, every deviation from her normal routine. I followed those patterns right to the high-end condo complex where Eric lived, right to the wine bar downtown she claimed to hate, and right to the boutique hotel where she said she'd booked a solo staycation. Lies layered over lies. But I didn't flinch. I set up a burner Instagram account to follow her friends' public stories. Sierra, especially, couldn't keep her mouth shut, or her camera off. Within days, I had videos of Melissa and Eric at parties, toasts to new beginnings, late-night stories of them dancing, holding hands, looking every bit like a couple who'd already moved on from me. And the kicker? Melissa was still wearing the promise ring I gave her last Christmas in almost every post. The audacity was staggering. But the most shocking discovery came from a conversation with my friend Josh, who happened to work in a different department at Melissa's office. When I casually brought up Eric, Josh raised his eyebrows. "You mean Eric Lawson? Marketing lead? That guy's married. Got 2 kids. His wife works in HR." I almost laughed. Melissa was planning her fairy tale escape with a man who was playing her just as hard as she was playing me. It was poetic in a way. She thought she was the puppet master. She didn't realize she was just another string in someone else's tangled web. I kept my act perfect. I started being even more affectionate, more attentive. I asked her about her day, cooked dinner more often, even talked about future travel plans and hinted at big surprises coming soon. She ate it up. Every little lie she told me was matched by a performance I gave right back. Meanwhile, I was unraveling every connection we had behind the scenes. I closed our joint savings account, split my direct deposits, rerouted bills to my name only. Anything she thought she'd secured financially was slipping right out of her reach, and she didn't even know it yet. The contrast between us was striking. She strutted around with her smug little secrets, convinced she was untouchable. I walked beside her with quiet intensity, my every move calculated. She thought I was falling deeper in love. I was counting down the days. And in those moments when she leaned against me on the couch or smiled at me across the dinner table, I didn't see a woman I loved anymore. I saw a performance. A fading act. And soon, the final curtain would fall on her script, not mine. It was sometime around midnight when I found the final thread that pulled everything apart. Melissa had fallen asleep on the couch, half a glass of wine still on the table, her phone screen lighting up occasionally with group chat notifications. I wasn't looking for anything new, I already had more than enough proof. But curiosity pulled me in one last time, and this time, I dug deeper. I scrolled back through older conversations, farther than I had before, looking for patterns I might have missed. That's when I found a message string from nearly 2 years ago buried in a private folder labeled Archived. It was a name I hadn't seen in a while, Dylan. My former college roommate. A guy who used to crash on our couch during business trips and joke that Melissa made a hell of a lasagna. I thought he was harmless. I thought he was family. The messages didn't leave much to interpretation. There were late-night texts, flirtatious comments, even photos, nothing explicit, but enough to confirm what I didn't want to believe. That night in Denver was wild, he'd written, followed by a winking emoji. We should have done it again before he came back. Melissa's response was a single kiss emoji. My chest tightened, but the rage didn't come the way it had before. This wasn't even a surprise anymore, it was just another crack in the illusion. Another mask pulled off. It wasn't just Eric. It had never been just Eric. I realized, painfully, that maybe I had never really known the woman I'd been building a life with. She'd simply been better at hiding it before. Then came Sierra's message the next morning. I hadn't even intended to check that fake Instagram account, but I noticed she'd posted another boozy brunch story. In it, she and Melissa were clinking mimosas and laughing about something off camera. Just a caption this time, some people really don't know they're just a chapter in someone else's book. It stuck with me. I clicked on Sierra's stories from the past week and caught a quick flash of a text thread where Melissa had written, "David's just like Dylan, too trusting, too easy." That was it. That was the sentence that flipped the final switch. It wasn't just betrayal, it was routine. A habit. A way of life for her. I started connecting more dots. My gut had already suspected she and Eric had been planning something bigger than just a fling. But what I discovered next made it crystal clear. I was reviewing our shared financial statements one evening when I noticed a series of small transfers from our emergency savings. Melissa had labeled them as utilities, subscriptions, and miscellaneous expenses, but the amounts didn't make sense. I followed the trail to a second bank account I'd never seen before, one created under her maiden name. It wasn't much at first, hundreds here, a few thousand there, but it added up quickly. Then came the final transaction, a wire transfer labeled condo reservation, Rosedale Towers. I looked it up. High-end condos. Sleek, modern, just outside the city center. I found the listing. 2-bedroom corner unit with floor-to-ceiling windows. Melissa's dream aesthetic. And the reservation had been made under both her name and Eric's. They'd been planning to move in together, on my dime. All those talks about wanting to save more for our future, all those nights she told me she was stressed about money, all the guilt trips she gave me about ordering takeout too often, they were all part of the scam. She was siphoning our savings to start a new life with someone else. But what she didn't know was that I'd already beaten her to the punch. I'd quietly drained our joint account weeks ago, opened a new one in my name only, and redirected my paychecks. Everything that was mine was already secure. The condo deposit? That money didn't come from me. It came from her share of the account, the one I left untouched on purpose, so she wouldn't notice the switch. She thought she was playing me. But she was funding her own downfall. I stared at the final balance on the account and felt something strange. Not sadness. Not even anger anymore. Just detachment. A cold, clinical emptiness. Like watching a building collapse in slow motion. I wasn't just betrayed as a partner, I was betrayed as a friend, a provider, a person. And while Melissa walked around the apartment humming like nothing had changed, I was living in a different reality entirely. One where the love I gave was real, but the person I gave it to was a lie. The night of the proposal dinner came faster than I expected, though I had meticulously planned every detail down to the second. I booked a reservation at Lucendi, the same place where Melissa and I had our first real date, the same restaurant she'd been casually hinting at for weeks. She thought she was a step ahead, that I was dancing to the tune she'd composed. What she didn't realize was that I had already rewritten the entire score. The maitre d' greeted us with a warm smile as we walked in, and Melissa beamed, her hand wrapped around mine, glowing with the kind of confidence only someone who thinks they've won can wear so effortlessly. She was radiant, chatty, constantly glancing at her reflection in the window, making small adjustments to her hair and lipstick. Her friends, Sierra and Paige, were already seated at the table, dressed like they were attending an engagement party they thought they'd be celebrating. Their eyes sparkled with anticipation. Phones ready. Smiles practiced. Behind them, seated casually at the bar with a whiskey glass in hand, was Eric, pretending to be coincidentally present, but exactly where I had told him to be. I played the part perfectly. I pulled her chair out, complimented her dress, laughed at her stories like I didn't already know each lie layered beneath her every word. I ordered her favorite wine. We shared an appetizer. She leaned in across the table, whispering, "This is perfect," with that look in her eyes that used to melt me. But tonight, it only made my stomach turn. When the dessert menu arrived, I stood up slowly, brushing imaginary lint off my suit jacket, the one she once said made me look like a man she could marry. I could feel the energy shift, like an invisible cue had rippled across the room. Sierra's phone was already out, recording. Melissa sat straighter, her hands folding delicately in her lap, waiting for the ring, the speech, the moment she could flip the scene and crush me with her performance. I raised my wine glass and smiled. "I'd like to make a toast," I said, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. Melissa's eyes widened slightly, her friends grinned. The room leaned in, quietly anticipating. To Melissa, I continued, pausing just long enough to let her smile stretch. "Who's taught me so much about love and betrayal?" Her smile faltered. A flicker of confusion. "To the woman who's spent 3 years pretending, while planning to humiliate me for sport." I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. The screen lit up with the familiar audio recording I had saved weeks ago. I pressed play. Melissa's own voice echoed through the restaurant speakers. "I'll brutally dump him after he proposes. Eric already booked our trip for the weekend." The words hung in the air like shattered glass. The room froze. Gasps, whispers, a sharp clatter of silverware on ceramic. Melissa's face turned ghost white, her mouth opening, then closing, completely lost for words. Sierra's hand lowered slowly, her phone still recording but now trembling. Paige looked like she wanted to disappear beneath the tablecloth. I looked directly at Melissa, calm, steady, unblinking. "You thought you were playing the role of a lifetime," I said, "but you were just rehearsing for your own downfall." Before she could speak, I turned to Eric, who had gone pale at the bar, his drink now untouched. "And Eric," I added, "maybe next time, you should tell your mistress that you're still married, and that your wife works in HR at your company." That's when Ava, Eric's wife, stepped forward from the entrance, composed and striking in a dark green dress. "Hello, Melissa," she said smoothly. "Nice to finally meet the woman who's been sleeping with my husband." The entire restaurant was silent. All eyes were locked on the unfolding chaos. Melissa stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor, knocking over her wine glass in the process. "You set me up," she shouted, eyes blazing. "You ruined everything." I stared at her for a long moment. "No," I said calmly. "You ruined everything. I just gave the audience a front row seat." Sierra grabbed her purse and bolted, Paige followed, stumbling over her heels. Eric tried to leave, but Ava blocked his path with a cold glare. I turned my back to them all and walked away slowly, the sounds of Melissa's meltdown trailing behind me like distant thunder. By the time the dinner fallout reached its peak, I was already halfway home, driving in silence with the windows down, letting the cool night air wash away the last remnants of what used to be my life. I didn't need to see the rest of the chaos unfold to know what would come next. Some things unravel on their own when the lies are exposed in daylight. The next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop, texts, missed calls, screenshots, voice notes. The video of Melissa's meltdown at Lucendi had already made its way into our friend circles, thanks to Sierra's still recording phone that captured her own horrified reaction right along with Melissa's breakdown. It didn't take long before the full story came out, the recording, the affair, the secret condo, everything. People love a good scandal, but what really struck a nerve wasn't the drama, it was the precision. The way the trap had been set, the calm way it had all been laid bare. It didn't look like revenge. It looked like justice. Melissa tried to get ahead of it, of course. She spun her own version, told anyone who would listen that I had been cold, emotionally distant, that I orchestrated the whole thing because I couldn't handle rejection. But screenshots are hard to argue with. So are timestamps, recordings, and receipts. Every lie she told was met with a digital counterpunch. No one bought it. Not even her closest friends. Paige blocked her within a day. Sierra deleted every photo they'd ever taken together from her feed and posted a vague caption about cutting out toxic people. The girl who once prided herself on having the perfect life and a flawless social circle now found herself shut out, dismissed, and completely alone. The condo deal collapsed. Without the rest of the deposit, money she thought she'd pull from her account, it was canceled within 48 hours. The agency didn't refund her portion. Eric tried to salvage the mess, but Ava wasn't playing games. She filed for divorce immediately, submitted every piece of evidence I'd provided, and tore through him in court like a storm. By the end of the month, Eric had lost half his assets, his kids, and his reputation at work. HR opened a full internal investigation. He was terminated within a week. The relationship he gave up everything for crumbled faster than either of them expected, and when the dust settled, neither had anything left to hold on to. As for Melissa, she lost more than her job. Her social credibility vanished, her friends vanished, her plans, her pride, all dissolved under the weight of her own manipulation. I heard from a mutual friend that her parents, once proud of their daughter's charm and poise, could barely look at her. Her mother was seen crying outside their church after someone brought up the dinner video. Her father reportedly told a colleague, "I didn't raise her to become this." It's funny how quickly the people who once put you on a pedestal step away when they finally see the cracks. Meanwhile, I moved into a new apartment on the other side of the city. It's smaller, quieter, filled with morning sunlight and peace, something I hadn't realized I was craving until I tasted it again. The silence isn't empty anymore, it's healing. I've started picking up old habits again, reading late into the night, running at sunrise, playing guitar without feeling like someone's judging the way I sing. There's no one questioning my worth, no one watching me like a puppet they're waiting to cut loose. Just me, breathing in the quiet, rebuilding something real. Not because I need to prove anything. But because peace, real peace, doesn't come from revenge, it comes from finally closing a door you should have walked away from long ago. It's strange how clarity often comes in silence, in the quiet moments when there's no one to impress, no audience to perform for. In the weeks that followed, I found myself reflecting more than I ever had before, not just about Melissa, but about myself, about what I allowed, about what I mistook for love. I used to believe companionship meant constant presence, shared routines, overlapping lives. But solitude taught me something different, something deeper. It taught me that love isn't about who's around you when things are easy, it's about who sees you fully, even when you're not trying to be seen. It's about respect, not obligation. Safety, not convenience. I realized that in all those years with Melissa, I was trying to earn something that should have been given freely: basic decency, emotional honesty, real care. What I thought was partnership was just performance. What I called love was just my hope trying to fill the empty space she left every time she lied. Then came Samantha. We met at a mutual friend's housewarming. She's an architect, calm, grounded, sharp-witted in a quiet way. The kind of woman who doesn't need to dominate the room to own it. There was no pretense with her, no games, no tests to pass. She didn't ask about my job title or my salary. She asked about the last book I read. She asked what made me feel alive. She listened, not to reply, but to understand. I remember telling her one night over coffee, "I'm not used to this, someone just accepting me without trying to change me." She smiled, leaned back, and said, "That's because I don't need you to prove your worth. I just like who you already are." And in that moment, I knew. Healing doesn't come from forgetting the past. It comes from finally being seen by someone who values your truth more than your potential. If you discovered your partner was planning to humiliate you, would you confront them face to face in the moment, or would you quietly gather everything, wait for the perfect time, and let the truth speak for itself like I did? I'm curious, what would you have done? Let me know in the comments below. I think a lot of us believe we'd handle betrayal with fire and fury, but sometimes the most powerful response isn't loud, it's calculated, composed, and quiet until it needs to be heard. Because in the end, betrayal doesn't define you. It doesn't decide your worth. What it really does is reveal people for who they are, and show you who you've been all along. It uncovers what's fake, what's fragile, and what never truly deserved your love in the first place. But most importantly, it gives you a choice. You can let it destroy you, hollow you out, turn you bitter, or you can let it sharpen you, teach you, rebuild you stronger than before. You can choose to crumble, or you can choose to rise. And believe me, there's nothing more satisfying than walking away, not with vengeance in your hands, but with peace in your heart. Because real strength isn't revenge. Real strength is healing.